Hello and welcome to Tech24. I'm Annelise Borges. Coming up, Google's search for immortality. The web giant is investing in a new venture that will try to extend the human lifespan. We will look into Calico, Google's latest project. And Marc tests Grand Theft Auto 5 and explains all the fuss surrounding the billion-dollar franchise. Today's Figure of the Week, brought to you by Le Journal du Net, looks at some of the numbers behind Grand Theft Auto 5's record-breaking launch.
Grand Theft Auto 5 is already a major success. The fifth installment of the video game series took $225 million to develop, but racked up $800 million in first-day sales alone. An estimated 14 million copies were sold. Since its launch 15 years ago, the Grand Theft Auto series has sold more than 127 million copies for an estimated turnover of $7.6 billion. That's more than the combined revenues of the three most successful Hollywood films ever.
And do stay with us as we'll be telling you what we thought of the game later in the show. Next, Google is not a normal type of company, says founder and CEO Larry Page. In its latest bold move, the web giant has invested in a project that will try to extend the human lifespan and solve the diseases that come with aging. Claire Williams has the story.
Has Google's co-founder watched too many science fiction films? Does Larry Page take himself for a saviour of mankind? Apparently not. Google is serious about its latest venture, Calico, finding a way to lengthen the human lifespan. The search company isn't short of cash to back the highly ambitious project. It's said to have 50 billion euros worth of investment funds in the bank. Its reputation for being visionary has helped it attract some of the world's top futurist scientists and engineers. Genentech former boss Arthur Levinson, specialist in biotechnologies, is managing the project. And engineer Ray Kurzweil spoke about it even before he joined Google's team.
Bit by bit, as we overcome different diseases, reverse aging processes, all of which is feasible, we will be extending human longevity.
Achieving human immortality by 2045 is no joke for Kurzweil. In 1999, he correctly predicted the existence by 2010 of telephones which reply to questions and driverless cars. And voices from the medical world have chipped in support of Kurzweil's vision.
It's possible that children born today and who will be 90 years old by the turn of the next century will benefit from technology so extraordinary that they'll be able to expect very long lives.
Calico is not Google's first transhumanist project. It created HAL by fusing human tissues with a machine. HAL's computer brain, made up of 16,000 processors, is able to understand on its own. It learnt what cats are, simply by watching numerous videos of cats on the internet.
And I'm now joined by Marc Edwards. Marc, this is not the first time that Google has invested in a company related to healthcare, right?
No, you're right, Annelise. So you may remember back in 2008, Google released Google Health, a sort of personalized information centralization service, which really, unfortunately, never really had any consumer take-up at the time and was discontinued a few years later. The truth is, Google isn't the same company now that it was in 2008, and we as consumers are not the same. The fact is, Google is so much bigger now, and, smartphone users, for instance, as an example, 20% of smartphone users have already downloaded an app related to healthcare, and what's the number? 60% of adults actually go online to search for health information. So our habits have changed completely. Now, another thing that they have developed that we talked about in Tech24 a few weeks ago was 23andMe, which was co-founded by Sergey Brin's ex-wife. And, it gives Google access to this sort of fast-growing genomic database, and it allows them to leverage all of this information. 23andMe, just as a quick recap, is a sort of fast way of testing your DNA and knowing what potential illnesses and matching those up with different people, so to see what they've got and see if you can, potentially eradicate certain diseases. So.
Now, Calico is one of a number of projects currently funded by Google X, a division of a company dedicated to what they call moonshot experiments. Tell us more about what we know about this special wing within Google.
So this special wing, it's located just a couple of minutes away from the headquarters in Mountain View. And what it is, there's a set of Google employees who kind of spend their lives hacking away on what you call these moonshots, these big ideas that will take years to come to fruition. Some of the things that we've seen already coming through, Google Glass, which of course we've had a lot of headlines on that. Driverless cars, which is an incredibly huge project, which will really have to change how we look at cars as a whole. My particular favourite, Project Loon, which is essentially trying to give internet to everybody in the world where they don't have access to the internet right now, through these kind of Wi-Fi hot air balloons that will float around areas that don't have
remote areas,
and be able to kind of give access to the internet, which is fantastic for everybody.
All right, we'll be watching Google's evolution. Thanks for that, Mark. And we're going to have to move on now. It's time for Test 24. The Grand Theft Auto series has been around since 1997 and still going very strong. In the biggest entertainment launch ever, its latest installment, GTA 5, generated $1 billion in just 3 days. Marc Edwards was one of the few to have the game shipped to him. No standing in line, no spending money. Marc, what did you think?
Courier to my door, and you know what? Forget the hype. People saying, is it as good as you hoped it would be? It's so much better. That's the truth. It's one of the best games that I've ever played. It's the pinnacle of open action video game world, and it's a real technical engineering feat, particularly in terms, I mean, it is the most expensive video game ever made, but that you can see that in the detail, because the bottom line is, the city that's created is unfathomably large, and it's the only time in my life where I've ever believed that that city will keep going on whether I play within the game or not, which I've never ever found that before. You always think that it's a computer generated game for you as the player to be central and a protagonist to it. But no, this city could evolve whilst you're, off working. This time there were 3 central characters. So last time there was a lot of disconnect between the fact that you play one character who's very honourable, who's torn between honour and guilt, and yet you go out on murderous rampages, because it's a very, very violent game. Therefore, there was a lot of disconnect, and now they've given you 3 characters, enabling you to kind of go on your rampages with what it can only be described as a psychopathic sexual predator, and another one where we have a jewel thief who's yes, I know. It gives you.
Sounds wonderful.
It fulfills a lot of different fantasies, but it's all done with a touch of humour as well. So there is that aspect. But it's a fantastic game. I will say it is extremely violent, though.
How did you rate it?
Well, as I said, it's one of the best games I've ever played. The design, incredible, 9 out of 10. Beautiful, beautiful landscape. Very simple to use. Although I do think they could have done slightly better with the way that the driving is improved from the last version. Still, you could have a bit better in the fighting sequences. Value for money, you can get 40 hours out of this, which could be its biggest strength and weakness, because is anyone actually going to complete that game? Because it will take you around 40 hours. But overall, what did I give it? 8.6 is fantastic.
Thanks for that, Marc, and thank you for watching this edition of Tech 24. Don't forget, you can get in touch via Facebook or on Twitter. Our hashtag is Tech24. And we leave you today with a story that Facebook likes are now officially protected by the First Amendment, according to a U.S. appeals court in Virginia. Last year, employees of a local sheriff were fired after Facebook liking the sheriff's opponent in an upcoming election. But the employees appealed to the decision and won. Last week, a federal court ruled that liking something on Facebook is indeed a form of expression. I'm sure the founding fathers would have approved. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.